Welcome to Mumbling About, where we pluck a game from gaming history and mumble about how it either failed to meet expectations, pushed past expectations, or like today, never even released. So it's November, and I can almost smell the turkey. But for gaming, it's a very lackluster month, with GTA Trilogy not doing very well with a rushed development cycle, Call of Duty being Call of Duty, and Battlefield 24 something, and releasing another okay game and not living up to the fans' expectations. That game though got us thinking about another similar game that also released with a lack of content, this being Battlefront 2, the reboot made by EA, the same company who makes Battlefield. Looking further into the Battlefront history, however, the story behind Battlefront 3 that has nearly been released twice made us think that this is something we need to mumble about. So let's start with the beginning. The original Battlefront was released way back in 2004. It's seen as one of the best Star Wars games. Well, it is to me, maybe it's in a lot of people's top 5s, with Battlefront 1 selling 3.8 million and Battlefront 2 selling 6 million. Both games did very well in 2004 and 2005 in the gaming market. Games were developed by Pandemic Studios, the same studio behind Mercenaries and Destroy All Humans. Sadly, in 2008, they were acquired by EA and kind of thrown onto the Halo minds of 343 Studios.
That just sounds like slavery with extra steps.
Ooh la la, someone's gonna get laid in college.
Closing down the company in 2009 after releasing the Saboteur. But we did get a really good Lord of the Rings game in the same year that actually might have been the reason Saboteur released with some issues. Lord of the Rings Conquest is kind of basically a clone of Battlefront. Also, EA does this a lot where they get studios, give them one shot and then throw them into the wind.
Like a turd in the wind.
Anyway, why did we have to wait 11 years for a mainline Battlefront? We did get an okay handheld and a mobile game, but why didn't we see a pandemic-like third main Battlefront? Between 2005 and the death of the studio in 2009, there is definitely something to mumble about.
He said it! He said it!
There was actually a Battlefront 3 in development, apparently close to finishing depending who you talk to. What do I mean by that, I hear you ask? Well, I mean this. The story is some hot multiverse shiznit, and the story starts in 2006. From a claim by Computer and Video Games, a magazine, they claimed that Free Radical Design, a completely different studio that was working on the Battlefront 3, the same studio behind the Splinter Cell, it's not Splinter Cell, don't know why I keep on saying Splinter Cell, Time Splitters game, that was also part of Crytek for a while. As they became Crytek UK, they were part of both Warframe and Crysis 2's development cycle. They are also now called Free Radical Design once again after changing their name back from Crytek UK to reform a new Time Splinter series in the future. Man, this studio might become a Mumbling About in the future because it has such an interesting story. This studio, with all their merits, was developing a Star Wars Battlefront 3, but it ended up getting cancelled apparently. Why apparently? Well, it's the age-old story of one side said they did bad and the other side said the same. Free Radical Design saying that they lost the rights to develop Battlefront 3 after 2 years in development. This is after an age rating registered in 2008. Also, weirdly, the rating was for a Nintendo DS. We did get a portable Battlefront called Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron that released on DS and PSP, but it was never confirmed that this rating was for that game. Later on, the co-founder of Free Radical Design, Steve Ellis, said this to GameIndustry.biz. Steve Ellis says about the relationship between the companies, saying they were big fans of our work. They liked our take on making games. They liked the way we worked. They wanted to do this project. It was a big thing. We were very excited for a long time. It was going very well. It seemed like after a while the relationship soured due to a new management, with him saying it was a change of direction for LucasArts as a company rather for the games that we were working on. I think what had happened was the new management had been brought in to replace the old and given an impossible mandate. It was a financial decision basically, and the only way they could achieve what they had been told to do was to can some games and get rid of a bunch of staff. So that's what they did. But it was quite a long drawn out process. Then finally he said the game was basically done, saying this: it was pretty much done. It was in final QA. It had been in final QA for half of 2008. it was just being fixed for release. It seems like in game development terms it could have gone golden before the cancellation. This feels like how Battlefront 2 ended, a massive line of players ready to play new content, but then the studio decides to go in a different direction. On the other hand, LucasArts, in retaliation to these quotes, said Free Radical Design kept on missing deadlines, so it's definitely a he said she said kind of deal. My theory is that the game kind of had too many ports to be made. And then that is the end of the story of the original possibility of Battlefront 3, but then we have a similar story with Battlefront 3 Reboot. 2 Reboot. Rather than supporting the game and adding more content, they decided to stop. At the high point of a sudden rise of player count, jumping to 19 million players at its peak, a fraction of the current Battlefield players at the moment, it seemed like the game was being managed by a skeleton crew, as the focus was on Battlefield's future, this being the current game just released. At the time where EA could have made a lot of money on an already released game, some reason decided to go against it, what is very surprising as EA seemed pretty money hungry.
Patience, Mr. Krabs.
Hello. I like money.
Then it was originally thought that the reason for Battlefront 2 that was left in the sun to dry out was because a third Battlefront, this not being connected to the original trilogy but the reboot trilogy, the third Battlefront in the reboot trilogy, this second chance at it, was going to be in production, and that's the reason Battlefront 2 stopped getting supported. And then the Star Wars IP got taken away from EA and it's now under the LucasArts brand again. Other projects are in the works by EA for Star Wars, as EA can still make games, but a recent report has now suggested that they have thrown Battlefront away to focus on another Battlefield game. Not the current one, what released a week ago. Similar to how Battlefront 2 died, the information comes from Tom Hedison in a tweet saying that Battlefront was pitched the title from DICE, but ultimately the title was shut down by EA due to licensing costs. This being due to EA not owning the Star Wars game IP anymore. Battlefront 24, it still isn't doing so good at the minute, with reviews doing poorly, but looking at Battlefront 2, there is still no claim out of players looking at both sides of the coin of which game that should be made. It's obvious that Battlefront 3 could be the best seller, even though it might take 20% revenue away due to licenses. Battlefield seems to be a dead franchise, and to be honest, it's EA that can afford 20%.
Hello. I like money.
Other Star Wars games might be going in a better direction, with already Star Wars Old Republic being remade for PlayStation, an unknown Star Wars game for Ubisoft, and also rumours spread across the galaxy of more games given to more different studios. It is pretty sad that it looks like we may never see a perfect Battlefront 3. Maybe we'll see a reboot of a reboot and we will see the first, second and finally the third game again. And that's all I can mumble about today. Thank you for joining this annoying episode of Mumbling About, and we will see you again on the next Mumble About.